Try to see it my way. Do I have to keep on talking till
Abe,
I can go on?
in our last video, we talked a lot about memory, but despite that, I'm pretty sure we're lost.
Frank, you're being ridiculous. We just gotta walk in this direction and take that. Okay, I don't know where we are either. So I guess it's good that today we're adumbrating the second half of Unit 7A, Memory, in Meyer's Psychology for AP textbook.
So let's get started. Abe, fire away.
Let's go. So, your memory is actually better in certain contexts.
For example, if Frank is doing his homework at his desk and his pencil runs out of lead, he might begin to walk upstairs to refill it. But when he gets upstairs, he forgets why he wanted to go there.
Weird.
However, when Frank returns to his desk, he suddenly realizes,
I need to get new lead for my pencil.
The takeaway here is that when Frank returned to his desk, which was the context in which he encoded the thought to refill his pencil, he remembered his thought. Context affects our memory. There are many theories for how déjà vu is produced. One is that déjà vu occurs when your current situation has cues that lead you to unconsciously retrieve a similar experience in your past. Now, the next key idea in this part is that your mood and memory are connected. Under this umbrella is the phenomenon of state-dependent memory. Essentially, whatever we learn in one state will be more easily recalled when we're back in that same state again. So if Frank gets drunk and hides his American pageant textbook somewhere in his house, he might not remember where it is when he wakes up sober the next day. But when Frank gets drunk again that next night, he is much more likely to remember the location of the pageant. There's also the concept of mood-congruent memory, where we tend to view the world through rose-colored lenses when we're happy and vice versa when we're sad. For example, if Frank fails an APUSH test, he might begin to remember all the other tests he failed. But if he aces his psych test, he might begin to remember all the other times he has experienced academic success. All right, Frank, what are the shortcomings of the human memory?
Well, Abe, memory is certainly an invaluable tool, but it's also a blessing that our memory isn't perfect. As the book points out, being able to truly remember everything would be as much a curse as a blessing. Luckily, our mind naturally fails to remember much of what our senses detect. Most of this forgetfulness comes from encoding failure, or the lack of short-term memory being encoded into long-term memories. This is why, no matter how many times you've unlocked your phone, you probably don't remember what app is in the bottom left corner. And you've probably already forgotten what type of shirt I was wearing in the intro. Another form of forgetfulness comes through storage decay, or memories that leave us even though they've been encoded into long-term storage. The experiments of Dr. Ebbinghaus discovered that forgetfulness occurs in a predictable pattern, with rapid forgetfulness in the beginning, gradually leveling off as time goes by. Abe, can you expound upon some of the flaws with our memory?
Gladly. Oftentimes, when you forget something, it's not because the memory is no longer in your brain, but rather that you're just failing to retrieve the memory. Failing to retrieve a memory is what we experience when there's a word or name on the tip of our tongue. Now, the key idea here is that learning certain things may interfere with our ability to retrieve other similar memories. And there are two types of interference. Proactive interference is when something you learned earlier disrupts your recall of something you experience later. So you experience proactive interference when you're trying to memorize your new locker combination, but your old locker combination keeps popping into your head. Retroactive interference is when new learning disrupts your recall of older information. And you experience retroactive interference when you accidentally call your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend by your current girlfriend or boyfriend's name. Also note that information you process during the hour before you go to sleep is protected from retroactive interference, so this is a good time to study. Now here's something else interesting. Human beings tend to revise our memories of the past, a phenomenon called motivated forgetting. For example, in a study, psychologists found that one group of people, after being lectured on the health benefits of frequent toothbrushing, recalled brushing their teeth frequently over the last 2 weeks at a higher rate than others did. To quote psychologists Tavris and Aronson, memory is an unreliable, self-serving historian. There are different theories about why we tend to revise our pasts. Freud proposed that we repress unpleasant memories to minimize anxiety and protect our self-concept. However, most researchers today agree that repression rarely occurs. Now, why do they think this? Our conscious efforts to forget about neutral material usually succeed, but we almost always fail to forget about emotional memories. Human beings seemingly aren't able to repress or forget our most traumatic and negative experiences. Frank, last night I saw the movie Inception, and I watched Leonardo DiCaprio plant an idea in someone else's head. Could this actually happen in real life?
Well, Abe, to a certain extent, yes. As good as memory is, its accuracy can be influenced by a variety of factors. After being shown a clip of a car accident, those who were asked how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other gave much higher estimates than those who were asked how fast were the cars going when they hit each other. This demonstrates the misinformation effect, or incorporating misleading information into one's memory of an event. Even being asked to imagine certain actions has led people to construct memories of the action they believe to be real. The fact that memory is so malleable and can be influenced so easily is terrible for a justice system such as ours, which is based largely on eyewitnesses, and research shows that those exonerated by DNA were generally imprisoned due to eyewitness testimony in the first place. At the heart of many false memories is source amnesia, which occurs when you misremember the source of information given to you. A creepy example of this is George Bush, who claimed to have seen the first plane hit the World Trade Center on TV, even though no live footage of the first plane exists. Abe, are all our memories based on reality?
Actually, they're not. Memories involve both reconstruction and reproduction, so judging a memory by how real it feels won't tell us if it's real or not. But it's important to note that real memories derived from experience tend to include much more detail than memories derived from imagination. In general, it's much easier to remember the gist than all the exact details. For example, when a group of people were given a list of words, candy, sugar, honey, taste, 75% of the time they aired and remembered a similar but non-presented word such as sweet. So the gist dominates our memory. Now, present feelings also tend to leak into past memories. What this means is that humans have a tendency to alter and align their views of the past with their current feelings. For example, in relationships, people in love overestimate their first impressions of one another. They might claim, "Oh darling, 'twas love at first sight." Conversely, people who have broken up underestimate how they felt early in the relationship. These people might remark, "There wasn't ever really a strong connection." It's also important to note that avoiding suggestive questions prevents the misinformation effect. So in order to extract less biased testimonies from eyewitnesses of crime scenes, psychologists actually train police interviewers to ask less suggestive questions. For example, they might first ask a witness to visualize the scene instead of asking something suggestive like, "Did you hear loud noises?" The bottom line is that asking leading questions can form false memories in the witness's head.
Where are we?
Now let's talk about children as eyewitnesses. Children are also susceptible to the misinformation effect, but they can still be accurate eyewitnesses as long as suggestive questions aren't used. Here's an example. In an experiment, preschoolers overheard a remark that a magician's rabbit had escaped and was loose in their classroom. When the children were suggestively questioned later in the day, a remarkable 78% reported that they had remembered seeing the rabbit.
Abe already mentioned the fact that repression, the idea first coined by Freud, is incredibly rare. We also just talked about how children are especially susceptible to the misinformation effect. This gives us all the more reason to doubt so-called recovered memories, no matter the circumstance. In fact, no memory ever recovered from before the age of 3 is reliable, and any memory recovered under hypnosis or the influence of drugs is especially unreliable. This was a huge problem back in the 90s, as therapists thought to extract memories of abuse from children. The problem is that although the recovered memories were often imaginary, the accusations of abuse were all too real. That's not to say abuse doesn't happen, it certainly does, but it's extremely dangerous to accuse based off memories sculpted by a therapist.
On a lighter note, if you're watching this video, you're probably a student and your memory is important. So here's a consolidated list of study techniques you can use to improve your memory. First, study repeatedly. Split your studying up into several separate study sessions. Rehearsal is also helpful, and you should rehearse with increasing waiting times between each of your rehearsals. And here we have Frank rehearsing to himself as he prays to the heavens and memorizes the Bible, one line at a time. Second, make the material meaningful. Describe what you learn in your own words and connect the information to your life. Third, activate retrieval cues. Try to recreate the circumstances in which you originally learned the information. Fourth, use mnemonic devices. That's straightforward. Fifth, minimize interference. Study right before going to sleep, and don't study topics like Italian and Latin back to back, since they can easily be confused. Sixth, sleep more. Sleep deprivation inhibits your brain from sorting and consolidating what you've learned from the day. And seventh, and finally, test your knowledge. That's also straightforward.
Well, Frank, it looks like our fire is almost out and it's getting kind of cold out here. I think we got to end this one.
Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you so much for watching.
Please like and subscribe.
And comment down below if you have any questions.
Catch you guys next time.